So this is going to be a comparison between the Suhr Hombre and the Cutthroat audio down Brownie. Just going to hear the sounds. They are both based on a Fender Brown Deluxe 6G3 circuit. They do sound very similar. So let's just do a few sounds. Start with the tremolo off. That was the down Brownie. The red corresponds with the red. The blue corresponds with the white. So this is the Suhr. Down Brownie. Suhr. Now we'll do some single coil. And let's add some tremolo. The down Brownie's tremolo is not as is more deep than the Hombre's and can go deeper. Let's just add these right now. Now what's very nice about these trem circuits is you can overwhelm them with the drive and then they fade out. So now let's add some more gain. Let's go up to 8. And we'll bring the tone up to 8. And let's just bring the volume all the way up. All right, now back to 7. Notice during all of that, the tremolo was on, but you couldn't hear it. Very cool. Now, let's just bring these tremolos up to max. The down Brownie has a lot more depth, so here's the most the Hombre can do. And the down Brownie. So the down Brownie can actually almost have the sound disappear. I would say this is about equal to the max on Hombre. And they both have that same ability to overwhelm. Now let's get on to the second channel. I'm going to bring these down just a bit. The second channel on the Hombre is the standard second channel of the Deluxe, except John Suhr has brightened it a bit because it was actually a very dark channel. In fact, the bright channel is actually a pretty dark channel compared to other amps I have. I would say this is a kind of dark channel on its own, and this is even darker, and the original was even darker, the original normal, so it's good that he brightened it up. But let's hear it. So I have them jumpered, so basically I can just turn this down and turn this up, and we're just on that channel now. And let's go back to the bright. So you can hear the difference there. Now what I like to do is bring in some bottom here. It has a different sound than if you just bring more gain in here. It's actually cool. It's very cool, and that's what this amp can do. This amp kind of stops there, right? Perfect recreation with a more usable normal channel, with outstanding design. Everyone who says, oh, it's PCB, the way that he designed the PCB is probably better than anyone can hand wire something, or at least on par. He uses curved traces, thick boards. Everything is laid out meticulously to avoid noise and overlapping. If you don't like it because it's PCB, I hope you'd reconsider. Now the Down Brownie, instead of having that normal channel, has a British channel, more of like a Marshall style wiring, and it's very cool. Really like that. So this is how you jumper it. So I'm just going to turn this down so we can hear that. And if you bring in the tone, it actually brings up the gain more. I also like to combine them. Bring in some of that low here. And notice the tremolo is still on. Let's just hear this British channel a little more. So if you bring the volume down, it gets pretty loose. It's not much drive. But as I said, if you bring this in, you kind of get that back. Again, where I really think it shines is kind of doing something like this. Now, before I go into all the other features of the Down Brownie, I want to let you hear a treble booster. So this is a Naga Viper, which is so cool into these types of amps. So let's go back to the Hombre. Treble booster off. Treble booster on. Alright, and Down Brownie. This is with the British on, so let's see how that sounds. Turn it off. Anyway, very, very cool. They also take fuzz wonderfully. Let's just go back to the standard sound here. Alright. So this is a fuzz. Here's the Hombre with the fuzz. Alright, and now we will do the Down Brownie's extras. So obviously the British channel is extra. I think it is the most important extra of the Down Brownie. There are a few other extras though. So, number one. Fuzz off. We are going to look at the front end. You can do the 6G3, which is the Brown circuit. You can go to 5E3, which is like a Tweed circuit. Or you can go to JTM 45, which is more of a Marshall circuit. So Here is the 5E3, 6G3, sorry, just on this channel. Now we're going to go to the 5E3 or the Tweed. Let's bring up that gain a little bit. So it's more explodey, ripping, it's kind of blowing up in the bottom. And if we open this up, give it some more gain. That actually adds, it makes it more martially. This is how you really get a Fendery sound, it's just on this channel. Here it's back to the 6G3. You can hear it tightens up and gets more throaty. Back to the 5E3. So you can hear the 5E3 kind of gives more high end, more low end. It's more falling apart. The 6G3 kind of controls it and has this kind of low, mid, throaty quality. And if we go over to the JTM 45, this is less highs, it's more kind of even and less gain. Back to 6G3, if I can find it somewhere in here. There it is. So I like the 6G3 the most, but the 5E3 is very cool. The JTM 45 I haven't gotten. I haven't used it as much, it hasn't spoken to me yet, but maybe it will someday. And then we also have a rectifier change. So here's the normal, we're on all sevens again, normal, this is the solid state rectifier that we've been using the whole time. Now I'm going to go back to tube rectifier, to 6G3, and we're going to talk about one other feature of this amp. It has a post-phase phase inverter master volume. And this is supposed to give you a good way to turn the amp down, because the amp is very, very loud. You know, if you're playing with a band, it's still going to be loud. But, you know, for home use, you can't really get these driven sounds unless it's cranked. It's got one volume. So the post-phase inverter master volume lets it do all of the preamp gain and the phase inverter gain, but it doesn't, obviously you're not going to drive the power tubes. So in my experience, it does change the sound. It does make it different. So it's, to me, useful in terms of, like, you know, if you want to just play the amp more quietly. However, you're kind of ultimately losing that sound. An amp like a, if I just point over here, a Friedman, oops. So, an amp like a Friedman that has amazing master volume potential is really a product of that. It is producing almost all of its sound in the preamp section. So it is basically moving the. You're not relying on power tubes in a lot of those amps. Like if I show you the Friedman over here, it's right above the Suhr. It's not relying on its master volume for its sound. It's power tubes. It's not relying on its power tubes. Whereas the down Brownie, a lot of the sound is coming from the preamp, but the power tubes are offering that kind of squish, and the juiciness of it are in the power tubes. But anyway, instead of me talking about it, let's see if we can hear. And I'm going to turn down that volume a bit and see if you can hear the difference. If I can find it somewhere back here. There it is. So I'm going to turn up the input gain just so we can get a better sound here. Okay. So you've already lost some gain there, right? So you could say, oh, well, I can just add it back. But it's different, it's cleaner, it's more open, and the further down you go in volume, I've only gone down a little bit here. If I go down more, now I'm like halfway down. Let me bring up the volume over here again. Okay. So here we are halfway down. You can kind of hear it in the bottom. It's not capturing. And also I'm still at 8. If I go back to 7 where we started. If I add in the British. get some good sounds there. It's you know, in one way you could say, hey, it's cool, you can get all these different sounds out of it because you're varying this part. But if I go back to full volume, and then go readjust so I don't blow everything out here. Alright, let's just see what it's like at full volume again. So there's a lot more kind of gain and punch with these power tubes pushing. Alright, and let's just finish this up. I'll talk into the camera. Alright. I try to do as little editing as possible. I know that it may be less fun for you, but it takes a while for me. So, what we have here is 2 great amps. They're both fantastic. And you should be happy with either one. You would be happy with either one as long as you're going for that sound. It's a very specific sound. The Suhr is great and is probably very close to the original. It is really nice feeling, sounding. The tube bias tremolo is amazing, and I highly recommend it. I like that they've brightened up the normal channel a little bit because it's so dark. Wouldn't want it any darker anyway. And it is what it is. And it is over $1,000 cheaper. The Down Brownie, however, offers a lot more. So if you just want a Brown Deluxe, then the Suhr ticks all the boxes. It's fantastic. Now the Suhr is PCB, but the design, the way that John Suhr does the designs seems very thorough, very well thought out. You're going to get a consistent product. He's very meticulous in his design, so you will not have noise issues. You will not have many issues. He does all of his traces with bends in them so that the electricity and the voltage and everything flows well. It's not in any way less good than a PCB. I mean, less good than hand wiring. In fact, hand wiring, unless you have really good people knowing exactly what they're doing every step of the way, with every wire, with every bend, where they're letting them lie, very much more likely going to run into issues. Now, Ron from Cutthroat Audio, who does these amps, seems like he's very good at this too, so you should trust that work is also meticulous and wonderful, and it is hand wired, so it makes sense that it costs more. Might be a little bit easier to service, maybe not tremendously, but a little bit. And it's got a lot of cool features. I really like, the British channel to me is the #1 feature. The 5E3 option is the #2 feature. Oh, I didn't show that it has a bright switch. Actually, he doesn't use that anymore. He said he doesn't include that in his builds anymore, but on the British channel, the tone knob functions as a pull switch, which removes the bright cap. And the bright cap only matters when the volume is low. The lower the volume, the more the bright is passing through. So the volume knob is only lowering everything below a certain frequency when the bright switches in, so you're getting highs. What he's done is he's just removed the bright cap. So if you had that amp on 10, I mean that side, the volume on 10, the bright cap wouldn't do anything, but as you went down, it would do something. So that is something he's removed because he just doesn't think it was anyone really cared for it or was using it. He does have two other options that I've spoken to him about, which are, one is the effects loop. You know what? I forgot to talk about something, which is, let's see if I can get you back in here without killing this. Oh, good enough. Headphones back on. All right. This is still recording. Okay. So I'm going to go back to the trem circuit, right? So we have this beautiful trem circuit that stops making the trem sound when you but as you play later, so when you start using that master volume, that is out the window. You no longer have that dynamic trem response, right? So if I turn the volume down, because the trem is in the power tubes and the power tubes aren't being driven hard, so you still have the trem effect, but it's much more pronounced. You can't dynamically control it. Even if I turn it way down, you just can't control that trem effect. It makes perfect sense because the power tubes are where that dynamic trem response is happening. They're either being driven or they're not. So if you turn down the master volume, the power tubes are not being driven, therefore the trem will not be kind of oversaturated and blown out. So, back to full volume. So that was another little point. Now, back to the down Brownie and what I was speaking about before. Ron, I spoke to him about these two additional things that you can add to this amp, which are an effects loop, number one, and number two, what he calls the animal mod. So the effects loop is a question of mine. I wonder, does that effects loop work when you're really driving the amp? Because the power tubes are being driven, so I assume you'd still get some distortion. I assume since there is a decent amount of distortion in the preamp, it would still sound better than putting the effect before the amp, right? That makes sense. But I would doubt that it would be kind of crystal clean, like I have a little bit of delay running after the amp is going through the reactive load. Oh, by the way, this stuff is running through a Suhr reactive load. They're both going into the same cab IR, so we're really hearing them kind of reproduced the same way. So that FX loop, I wonder about that. You know, how useful would it be in the application that I want to run it kind of hot with the power tubes driving. Second is he says he has something called the animal mod, which is, I think he said on the Brown channels volume there's a pull knob, and what it does is instead of stacking them in parallel, which is how it works now, so right now both volumes are running in parallel, actually on both amps. It's just they kind of are running at the same time. But he says the animal mod, actually this goes into this. So it's like it's two gain stages, gain stage 1, gain stage 2. And he says that is, you get much more gain. It's a very squeal harmonics, pinch harmonics fly out of the guitar. It sounds interesting. You know, if I was going to upgrade to an effects loop, I might upgrade to that too. Each of these upgrades is another $200 to be installed. If you buy the amp from him direct, or I guess you could probably ship it to him and he would add these if desired. I do not have them, so I do not know how they sound or work. Hopefully that was a helpful video, and I'm sure you will enjoy either of these products. They're both great.